Hello, good morning, everyone. Welcome to another lighting talk on Nolty. My name is Manuel Padilla, and today I'm going to talk about the WordPress REST API. Let's start with some concepts about what is REST. REST is representational state transfer and is an architectural style to provide the standards between computer systems on the web and facilitating communication between different systems. In the architectural style of REST, the client implementation and server implementation can be performed independently without knowing each other. This is really useful when we are working on a big application that needs to consume some external resources. When we can provide different connections between different companies and they don't need to know each other's to see how the internal process works. They just have a public side of the application, and the client can connect to that public connection or endpoints. Clients send requests to retrieve or modify resources, and servers send responses to the request. So the client can send different requests. The client needs to use, or all the REST process needs to use the HTTP protocol. On this HTTP protocol, we can use the four basic verbs, that is get, post, put, and delete. For example, we can retrieve some information using the get verb over the HTTP to consult some information. We can use the post to retrieve another information using the post verb. And also we can add or delete information using put or the delete verb. What is an API? API is for Application Programming Interface. It is a set of tools, definitions, and protocols used to design and integrate software applications. It allows a product or service to communicate with other products and services without the need to know how they are implemented. So, as a provider, some companies can use a public API, and the customers can have access to that information, all the public information. And also sometimes there are some authentication that they can use to access to different information on some security or private access. API simplifies the application development since we don't need to write all the functionality or all the requirements that an application maybe needs. For example, we can use some authentication from another company, like use the authentication for Google or for Facebook or Twitter, and we don't need to implement our own authentication for users. So we can reduce the cost and the time that we invest on the development. There are three approaches to API version policies. We have the private access of partners, or access just for some partners, and public. It all depends on how the provider of the API wants to manage the information and how they want the users use the API. When we're going to work with REST API, we need to work with routes and endpoints. What is a route? It is a URI that can be assigned to different HTTP methods, and the endpoints The assignment of an individual HTTP method to a route is known as an endpoint. So the routes are URIs that we can use to access using the HTTP protocol to get some information from the API, and we have an endpoint that is going to be the access to that information using the HTTP protocol too. This is an example of what we can see when we are access to the REST API for WordPress. If we send a GET request to this demo URL, that is demowp.com/wp JSON, we will get a JSON answer showing us which routes are available and within each route which endpoints are available. So we can see that, for example, on this screenshot, we have the endpoint for the post, and inside this endpoint we have available the routes are for the post, and the endpoints for the route post are the get and the post, so we can get information from our blog or our website built on WordPress, and also we can send information to the site. We need to have some special access to the site to create or delete information that can be managed using authentication. For all this information that we get when we are working with the REST API, we get the information on a JSON file. JSON comes from JavaScript Object Notation, and it is an open standard file format that uses human readable text that transmit data objects that consist of pairs of attributes and values on a matrix data types or any other serializable value. JSON is a lightweight format for sorting and transporting data. That's why it's used on the request for the APIs, for the request sent to the servers on APIs. It is often used when data is sent from a server to a web page. It is self-descriptive and easy to understand. That is one of the biggest advantage of use JSON, since it really easy to read for humans, not just for computers. For example, here we can see that we have data from a person. The first name is John, last name Smith, is alive. We have a boolean to say that is true. We can see his age, that is 27, and also we can see the address. Inside the address we have an array of additional information, and we can see the street address, city, state, postal code, and also there's another phone numbers where we can use an array or matrix to add more information. So as you can see, this data is really easy to read for humans, and also really useful and lightweight for use to transfer information between systems or applications. So about the WordPress REST API, we can find a different routes and endpoints on the codecs for WordPress. These are some default routes that we can find on an initial installation for WordPress. For example, we can access to the post revisions, categories, tags, pages. We can access to different comments, taxonomies, media, users, and there's another routes that we can use, and also we have the chance to create a new routes if we need to do it using our own code, and we can access to any data on the database, or even we can connect a different services that is out of the WordPress or implementing new data. For example, we can use um, advanced custom files to create new fields or new properties and access to that information. So I'm going to show a little example of what can we do using the REST API. Here I have this is Postman, and this software is going to let us send requests to the server. And for example, I have a custom local installation for WordPress, and on this installation I have a demo content, as you can see here. This is all demo information. And using Postman, I can send different requests to my WordPress site that is on local. For example, I can use the endpoint to get all the all the all the posts that I have, or get up a single post by an ID. For example, if I want to get all the posts that I have, all the information that I have on a post with the ID 1, I can use my WordPress domain /wp-json/wp/v2. On this side, on this case, I'm going to use the version 2 of the REST API for WordPress. And then I can use the post route and send the ID that I want to get the information. If we click on get, I'm going to get all the information that is related with this post. Also, for example, we can get all the pages that exist on my installation for WordPress. And this case is almost the same URL. It's the same domain /wp-json wp version 2 of the REST API. But now I'm using the pages route, so I can send the request, and I'm going to get all the pages that are created inside the installation of my WordPress on local. I can use an ID for a page too, and we can use any other of the routes that we have already available on the WordPress codex. For example, I was talking about posts and pages, but also we can use media or users to get more information. So when is a good idea to use the REST API from WordPress? Especially these days, a lot of people are working with single page applications. They are using Vue or Angular or React to create websites that are really fast, but they need to have a backend where the administrator can add more information or manage the information that is on the site. So we can implement WordPress as the backend software, the CMS, where the administrator or the user can access and create new content. Once the content is published, we can use the API to access to that information and then show that information on the single page application. Let's say that is a React application, a React website, and we can reflect the information on the front end without having to create a special backend from zero. So that is going to reduce the cost of the development and the time. We can use it also to extend functionality. For example, if we need to have access to another installation of WordPress, for example, if we have, let's say, 2 newspapers and we need to fit the newspaper B with information that is published on the newspaper A, we can create a process that do that update automatically. So we can access between different installations of the WordPress and other CMS or other systems to get the information and use it inside on a single system to unify all the information. Also, we can use this as a multi-platform core. Let's say, for example, we have this newspaper and we have a native application for Android and another native application for iOS, and also we have the web version of the new newspaper. If we want to show the same information on these three platforms, we can use WordPress and open the API, and all these native application can send requests to the WordPress installation, the WordPress system, to retrieve all the new information and show on their respective platforms. So we can have a different application, and we don't need to have just the HTML access. We can use Swift, or we can use our custom installation or custom application for each device. Also, we can use the REST API to get out of PHP. Let's say, for example, that we want to build a website, as we said at first, but we want to use PHP, or we don't have too much experience working with PHP. So we can open the API for the installation on WordPress, and we can use any other language to manage all the information that we want to store on the WordPress system. We can use, for example, as we say, JavaScript, and we can send or retrieve information from the system without the need of implement PHP directly. Um, on some point, we're going to need to use some PHP, but it can be the more basic syntax or functionality of the language, just to create maybe some custom endpoints, for example. So about the custom endpoints, um, can be created for the developer or for the user. For example, I have this custom endpoint created here. This custom endpoint is going to work for me to retrieve to get the last title of the last post from an author. So I have this function on PHP. The name is author last post title, and I have this data value that is going to be passed to the function, and I can use the get post function from WordPress to get the last post from the ID that I'm passing using this parameter. This is the function, and how can create the endpoint to trigger or to use this function. We can use the REST API init action that it comes by default with WordPress, and we register a new REST route. So, for example, on this route, I'm registered the nullity namespace. This is going to help me to prevent that I'm going to duplicate the route. So the namespace needs to be unique, so we can override on any other plugin or any other endpoint that any other route that already exists. So I'm sending the author route, and I'm going to send an ID. The method that I'm going to use is get, and the callback is going to be my function author last post title. If I go to Postman, I have this. This is going to be my URI. That is the domain of my site, WP-JSON, and here is my route. I have nullity, B1 author, and I'm going to get, and I want to get the the last post from the author number 1. So if I send the request, I get this result that is hello world. So hello world is the last post from the author 1. I can change the ID of the author, and I'm going to get a different title. In this case, from the author 2, the last post is markup, HTML tags, and formatting. So on this way, I can create a different custom endpoints using and create a custom returns for the information that is requested from the URI. So part of the advantage of use the API and the REST API from WordPress is the implementation of a headless CMS. A headless CMS is a backend only content management system CMS, built from the ground up as a content repository that makes content accessible via RESTful API for display on any device. So for example, if we can see on this illustration, we have the backend. The backend is used to manage and store the content on the database. We have an API, and we can access to that information from any device, like a watch or a mobile device or desktop computer or laptop. Using the API, we can access to that information. Gatsby is one of the more popular framework to create a headless CMS. It's a free and open source framework based on React, and Gatsby can help developers to create incredible fast applications and websites. This framework is really useful to create a really fast website, and we can combine React using Gatsby to create our single web page application or our website, and we for the front end, and we can have our CMS that is going to be WordPress on the backend to manage all the content or all the additional functionality that is going to fit the the front end. This is a small scheme about how the headless CMS works. We have the data sources that is going to be the CMS, Markdown, or all the data. On the CMS part side, we have, for example, WordPress or Drupal or Contentful. We can use the markdown for documentation, post, and any other information related with the markdown. And we can use the data, like the access to the APIs, databases, and the JSON information to send the data to the client. We have a build that is going to be created over HTML, CSS, and React with JavaScript, and we can use the framework of GraphQL to implement, and we are going to deploy to any web host, any static web host. We already have a talk related with this topic that was created by Dulce. You can take a look on this talk. The name is Gatsby with WordPress as a headless CMS. It's a really complete talk about how you can implement Gatsby to with WordPress to create your own headless CMS. And that's all right now. Please share your questions if you have any. So let me know if I can answer any question. Okay, so looks like okay. what are the risks behind building in this way on headless way? Well, sometimes one of the biggest issues that can be comes with the implementation of a headless system is that we need to refresh the content that is going to be on the front end, sending requests to the backend, so to the WordPress. So sometimes if the backend is really big or the information is really big, it can consume a lot of bandwidth, and also it can consume a lot of or resources on the servers, and sometimes the information it's not refreshed at the time. So for example, if you are a newspaper and you upload or create a new article, maybe you don't see that article on the front end published immediately after you publish the article on the backend, since the process isn't get refreshed yet. So that can be one of the inconvenience of working on the headless methodology or process. And also another risk can be the access to the information, since you are going to have another source where you're going to retrieve the data. If you don't use the proper authentication or security, maybe you can get an vulnerability to your backend, so um, other people can access to that information and consume your data, and you're not if you don't take care of the security on that way. What types of API authentication are supported by WordPress core? As I remember, we can use a token or we can use OAuth. I think they can we can implement the OAuth too for the authentication. And also we have a basic authentication where you just send your to your user and your password on your request, and you can get the access to the API. Um, for to get to use the method get, you don't need to authenticate by default, so you can get any information. But if you are going to put or update information on the backend on the WordPress site, you need to authenticate. Yeah, and as I say, you can use OAuth, that is one of the most famous with the token option. Or if you are not having too much issues with the security, you can use the simple authentication, just sending your user or your password in the request to make use of the API. But it's a bad idea if because any person can intercept your user or your password. So it's not the best option. The best option, I think, is the OAuth authentication. Okay, I think that are all the questions. So thank you for stay with us on this lighting talk, and please be back the next Friday for another talk from the Nulti team. Thank you.